Hello everyone, so no intro as always. Today we shall be covering whether Scarlet King from SCP-verse could survive 40k. Now, because Scarlet King is from the SCP universe where no such thing as canon exists, I shall be using 3 interpretations of him to, keep this scenario interesting. Those being Tufto's proposal, Djoric's proposal, and SCP-6747-C and a Fabula. Also, to give 40k universe as good a chance of beating the king, I shall be buffing the shit out of Chaos Gods, because realistically they are the only threat to him. Bolt gun rounds ain't doing shit to a multi-dimensional being, unless they are fired by the Ultramarines, then they might be infused with plot armor penetrating bullets. The way that this video shall play out is that I'll first cover Chaos Gods, what are their abilities, how strong they are, etc. And after that I shall cover each interpretation of the Scarlet King, starting off in my opinion from the weakest, Tufto's proposal, all the way up to the strongest and a Fabula. So without further ado, let's start by covering the Chaos Gods. Also, again, I want to repeat that I shall be buffing the shit out of Chaos God, and a lot of what I say will be my theories that I already explained in one of my former videos that you should definitely go check out after you are done with this one. So let's start off with where Chaos Gods live, which is the hellish dimension known as the Warp. There are only 4 main ones, I mean technically 5, but Games Workshop doesn't care about Malau, so neither shall I. Those being a hooker known as Slanesh, bodybuilder war god known as Korn, librarian known as Zinch, and Asmongold, the god of disease. Whilst being in the Warp, they are basically unkillable. Warp is a place whereby as long as you rule a certain territory, anything goes in that territory. You can make or unmake mountain ranges with a single thought, make logically impossible architectural structures. Look, basically what I mean to say is that it doesn't abide by any rules, so you can do basically whatever the fuck you want. Chaos Gods also exist in an infinite number of realities and can travel through them at will. This requires a bit of explanation, so let me explain. Basically, Chaos Gods from Warhammer Fantasy and 40k are the same gods. There is some contention about this in the community, but again, we want the strongest Chaos Gods, so stick with me. In fantasy, a race of frogmen, known as the Old Ones, were running from something that was chasing them, which later turned out to be Chaos Gods. We know that in 40k, Old Ones were also running from Chaos Gods during the War in Heaven, so is it that much of a stretch to say that they tried to hide in another dimension or reality from Chaos Gods but then got found? I mean, Necrons create their own pocket dimensions and realities all the time, and after Chaos Gods destroyed Warhammer Fantasy world, it is said that their champion Archaon went to destroy several more realities, and the only way for him to be able to do that is for him to have the ability to travel through them. Also, during the War in Heaven in 40k verse, Slanesh demons were fighting in that conflict, which doesn't make any sense because she wasn't born yet. Until you realize that due to her existing in multiple realities, she could still send some of her power and Hooter employees to another reality, even though she can't manifest herself due to her not being born yet and there not being enough degenerate emotions for her to be able to sustain herself. Same also applies to all the other gods. Okay, so you may be wondering, fine, but you only explained that she exists in multiple realities, not infinite ones. Fine point, but let me explain to you why 40k is actually a multiverse. Stop it, stop throwing shoes at me. I know that everyone is sick of the multiverse, it's not my fault Games Workshop designed their war this way. Okay, so to explain, there are several examples of people going to the past using the warp and meeting and sometimes even killing their former selves, most notably that one time when Orc Warlord went back in time to kill his former self in order to have 2 of his favorite shooters, which of course shouldn't be possible due to grandfather paradox. If you kill yourself in the past, then you can't exist in the future to go back in time to kill yourself in the past. So the only logical explanation is that the warp isn't a connection between 2 points in one reality, but rather a connection between different points in separate realities. This also explains the future foresight. It's described in lore that there are infinite number of possible futures, and as the event that you are trying to predict draws closer, they narrow down to a singular point. Now, through my explanation, what they are seeing aren't different futures but rather different realities, and as the event narrows down, it becomes easier to predict which future will be yours. Okay, that's enough talking about the strengths of the Chaos Gods, now let's talk about their weaknesses. Those being that due to Chaos Gods being creatures of raw emotion and thought, they require sentient beings to produce those emotions in order for them to sustain themselves. So theoretically speaking, if you destroyed all the sentient life in the galaxy, they wouldn't be able to exist, and even if you only killed half the life in the galaxy, that would still severely weaken them. They would not be entirely destroyed because again they live in infinite realities, but they would not be able to manifest in that reality nor send much of their power into it due to that reality lacking any sort of emotions. With that said, let's see what our first interpretation of Scarlet King, Tufto's proposal, can do. As we gaze into the crimson sky, fellow children, you and I, we listen to the doom bells ring and all will fall to Scarlet King. Tufto's proposal for the Scarlet King is by far the most similar one to Chaos Gods. He, just like the Chaos Gods, feeds off emotion and conflict between the modern and the pre-modern. Conflict between the routine of today, where you go to work, do your job, live in relative safety and almost never have to fear going hungry or being cold. And knowing that it is all a facade that might crack at any moment, the fact that modern society might crack and that you can be sent screeching into the pre-modern brutality without ever being warned. The universe is an uncaring one, where the strong do what they can and weak suffer what they must. So if there is a god, he is either an uncaring one or a brutal monarch. Scarlet King embodies the idea of this, and just like the Chaos Gods, he feeds off these emotions and his power fluctuates depending on how prevalent they are. So it is said that he can be weakened and he can also be destroyed, but only temporarily, because these emotions are gonna appear sooner or later, and when they do, so will he. It would also appear that Tufto is a big fan of the Lord of the Rings, because it is stated that Scarlet King, just like all evil things, cannot create, only corrupt, which is something taken straight from the Tolkien. So yeah, that's Tufto's Scarlet King. It is simpler than all the other interpretations on this list. Speaking of them, let's go to the next one, which will be the wife beater one, aka Djoric's proposal. With the border of his realm set, the king declared war. His servants, and there were many, those birthed of the darkness below, which I can only assume is Australia, or those that had fallen to the king's service, surged out of his kingdom, and there was war with creation. The war continues to this day and shall not end until the end of all things. A bit edgy, but still dope. So this version of Scarlet King started off as a lesser god known as the Kahrakh. Damn, Djoric really just smashed the keyboard and called it good enough. He was the only god to possess sentience and no pain and loneliness. So in order to cure it, he started killing his siblings. It didn't help at all, but it did make him more powerful, cause when he consumed them, he gained their powers. Anyway, after the realization that killing people didn't cure his depression, he vowed to destroy the existence itself, and upon that declaration, the creation trembled. But he realized that he couldn't do it alone, so he took one of the remaining goddesses as his bride. They got along for a bit until Scarlet King realized that this ain't no Twilight and raped her to death. But not before she gave birth to 7 daughters that later became 7 brides and birthed the legions of Leviathans to serve as Scarlet King's foot soldiers. Yikes. So anyway, after raping her till she succumbed to blood loss, he was covered in so much blood that he got the title of the Scarlet King. And can I just say how lame of a way that is to get such a cool title? He didn't get it by bathing in the blood of his enemies, but rather in the blood of his own wife. My goat Nagash would never. He treats women with the respect they deserve. Okay, anyway, basically after the domestic violence incidents, he used his newfound army and went on the destruction of reality. I don't have time to cover all the things he did. To put it short, creation waged a war upon him, where many gods united to fight him, including the machine god, the serpent, but most importantly the brothers Death, who summoned every and all beings that have ever or will ever die to join in a fight against against him, which allowed 7 great heroes wielding 7 spears to destroy 7 seals, keeping Scarlet King safe in order to allow Brother's death to finish the job and slay him once and for all. After his death, New Sphere, which is the realm kind of like the warp, but it encompasses all realities that house concepts and feelings, alongside the ability to alter reality and creation at will. Yeah, I forgot to mention that Scarlet King just had the ability to alter reality, kind of like the Catan, but obviously much more powerful. After his death, New Sphere turned upon itself and basically kind of caused universe reset, or at least conceptual reset. Okay, that's it, we are finally on our last interpretation, which is the 6747-C constant of chaos, aka Anafabula. So 6747 is a bit complex to explain because it involves the Anafabula event, so much so that even I, who have read the article, am a bit confused by it, so I'll try to explain it in the simplest way possible. This Scarlet King was discovered through Operation Makima. I can only assume this is happening in a Chainsaw Man universe. Basically, the SCP Foundation realized that they exist in a fiction and that they can bring people back to life, but Scarlet King possessed one of the researchers. And through that they basically discovered what Scarlet King really is. His real title is the Constant of Chaos, and he exists in all realities. In every reality where chaos or evil exists, so does he. Every antagonistic force is his avatar, whether they know it or not. He also knows that he is a fictional character, but is trying to ascend to a real plane of existence. As such, he cannot be destroyed and can basically do as he pleases, alter the plot of a story or destroy it entirely. Yeah, as you can already guess, this is the most powerful version, at least to my knowledge. With that said, let's see how each of them fares against the 40k verse. Starting off with the Tufto's proposal, he is roughly on the level of the Chaos Gods, if not a level above, but he can manifest in the real space of 40k galaxy. He is honestly quite passive, and even though he has some servants called the Children of the Scarlet King, they're kind of like ants to him. It would be like some ant colony worshipping you. Yeah, it's cool, but you don't really care. I think he would be content just sitting in the corner of 40k galaxy feeding off the emotions of suffering. If he ever wanted to destroy the galaxy, he very easily could. There's nothing in the real space at least that can even harm him. But he wouldn't be able to destroy Chaos Gods, not because he isn't strong enough, but rather because they exist in infinite realities and he can only be at multiple places at one time. Next up, Joy vs Scarlet King. So what do you want me to say? He solos the verse. He has power over concepts and defeated gods that are much more powerful than Chaos Gods that exist in multiple infinite realities. Like for example the Machine God, the SCP one, not the 40k one. If you're wondering how is it possible to exist in multiple infinite realities, take 2 boxes. In first box put infinite number of 1s, in second box put infinite number of 2s. Now take box 3 and put both box 1 and 2 into it. We know that box 3 is larger because it contains all of the sequences of the 1s and 2s alongside all of their other combinations. So yeah, Joyverse clears. Last one is Anafabula, which is the concept of evil, so it's basically puppeteering Chaos Gods, and even if you want to disagree for the sake of scenario, I mean, come on, it literally controls the plot, need I say more? Okay, we are finally finished. I hope all of you liked this video, and if you did, smash like and subscribe, and if you disagreed or even agreed, post a comment down below, and I'll see you all in the next one. See ya.